Have you ever walked into a room and completely forgotten why you went there? Maybe you've had moments where a familiar name slips your mind, even though you've known the person for years. We all laugh these moments off, calling them senior moments. But sometimes those little slips can be more than just normal aging. They could be the very first whispers of something bigger, something we often don't want to think about: Alzheimer's disease. Now, I'm not here to scare you, but I am here to help you stay one step ahead. Alzheimer's doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, often hiding behind symptoms we might mistake for stress, tiredness, or just getting older. But here's the good news. When we spot these early signs, we have a better chance of slowing things down, finding supports, and living life on our own terms for much longer. In this conversation, we're going to talk about some of the earliest signs that something might be changing in your brain, signs that are often overlooked or brushed aside. I want you to listen not with fear, but with curiosity and awareness, because knowledge is power. And when it comes to your brain health, power means independence. One of the very first and most common changes people notice is subtle memory loss, especially when it comes to recent events. I'm not talking about forgetting where you put your reading glasses once in a while. That happens to everyone. I'm talking about situations where you're repeatedly asking the same question in a short amount of time, or you can't recall something that happened earlier that same day, even though it was important to you. For example, you might have a lovely breakfast with your daughter, and just a few hours later, she calls to chat, but you can't quite remember that she was even there that morning. This kind of memory gap feels different. It's not just a delay in recalling, it's as if the event never took place in your mind, and it's one of the earliest red flags we should pay attention to. What makes this tricky is that at first, these moments might be rare. You might go weeks without another one, but over time, they become more frequent, and the frustration of not remembering can cause embarrassment. Some people begin to withdraw from conversations or social events because they're afraid of making mistakes. If you or someone you love starts showing this pattern, it's important not to dismiss it. Talk about it. Write it down. Keeping a memory journal can actually help you track whether these moments are happening more often.
Another early sign, one that often flies under the radar, is struggling to follow conversations or losing your train of thought mid-sentence. You might be chatting with a friend about a book you're reading, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank. Or maybe you're in a group discussion, and you find it hard to keep up, almost like the conversation is moving too fast. This isn't about not knowing the topic, it's about your brain struggling to process and connect the words in real time. It can also show up when following instructions or remembering steps in a familiar activity, like cooking your favorite recipe, but forgetting a key ingredient halfway through. I remember talking to a gentleman in his early 70s who loved playing cards every week with his friends. He knew the rules inside out. But slowly, he started forgetting whose turn it was or mixing up the order of the game. His friends thought he was just distracted or tired, but it turned out his brain was quietly changing. When he finally spoke with his doctor, they discovered it was an early stage of Alzheimer's. By catching it early, he and his family were able to make small lifestyle changes that helped keep his mind sharper for longer. It's important to remember, occasional forgetfulness or distraction can happen to anyone. But when you start noticing a pattern, when the gaps in memory or thinking become a regular part of your day, that's when it's time to pay attention. Our brains are like gardens. If we notice weeds early and pull them out, the flowers can keep blooming. But if we ignore them, the weeds can take over. And there's one more early sign I want to share before we move forward. It's not about forgetting, it's about change in mood or personality. Alzheimer's isn't just a memory disease. It affects how we feel and respond to the world. Someone who was always easygoing might become irritable or anxious.
You might notice yourself feeling unusually suspicious, sad, or even fearful for no clear reason. It's as if your emotional filter changes, and small frustrations suddenly feel overwhelming. Sometimes these shifts are so subtle that even close family members chalk them up to stress or life changes. But when combined with memory problems or trouble thinking, they're worth taking seriously.
You see, Alzheimer's is not a single moment. It's a slow unfolding. By noticing these first whispers, the repeated forgetfulness, the trouble following conversations, the changes in mood, we give ourselves a chance to step in early, to make choices that protect our quality of life. When we think about Alzheimer's, most people imagine memory loss as the main symptom, but in reality, the condition can affect much more than memory. It can subtly change the way we go about our everyday tasks, even the ones we've been doing for decades. One of those early changes is difficulty with familiar routines. Imagine sitting down to pay your monthly bills, a task you've done for years without even thinking about it. But now, the numbers on the page seem harder to make sense of. You forget which bills you've already paid, or you get confused about the steps involved in sending a payment. It's not that you've forgotten how to add or subtract, it's that your brain is struggling to sequence tasks and follow the process from start to finish. I once spoke with a woman who loved baking bread every Sunday. It was her tradition. Flour on the counter, music in the background, the smell of yeast filling the kitchen. But she started noticing that she'd forget whether she'd already added salt, or she'd leave the dough sitting too long because she got distracted and never returned to the recipe. For her, that was the first sign that something was shifting, because it wasn't just about forgetting, it was about losing the flow of something she'd mastered. Another overlooked early symptom is trouble with spatial awareness and visual processing. This might sound technical, but it can show up in very practical ways. You might find yourself misjudging distances, like pouring coffee and missing the cup, or struggling to park your car in a spot you used to slide into easily. Sometimes it's about recognizing faces or reading signs. Your eyes are fine, but your brain is having trouble making sense of what it's seeing.
This is especially important to notice when it starts affecting safety. People in the early stages of Alzheimer's may bump into furniture more often, have more near misses while driving, or feel disoriented, even in familiar neighborhoods. It's not clumsiness, it's your brain struggling to connect visual input with movement and memory. Then there's another sign many families miss: difficulty finding the right words. We all have moments when a word is on the tip of our tongue, but with Alzheimer's, it can happen so frequently that it disrupts conversation. You might call everyday objects by the wrong name, like asking for that round thing when you mean a clock. Or you might pause mid-sentence, searching for a word that simply doesn't come. Over time, this can make people avoid speaking up, especially in group settings, because they feel embarrassed or frustrated. I remember a retired teacher telling me she always prided herself on her vocabulary, but she started noticing that simple words like spoon or window would vanish from her mind. At first, she laughed it off, but as it happened more often, she realized something was wrong. Her doctor explained that in Alzheimer's, the pathways that store and retrieve language can be among the first to weaken. When we put these signs together, trouble with familiar tasks, changes in spatial awareness, and difficulties with language, they paint a fuller picture of early Alzheimer's. And while each symptom on its own might seem small, the combination tells us something important. The brain is being affected in multiple ways, not just in memory. This is why early recognition matters so much. If you notice you're struggling to manage daily routines that used to be automatic, if you've had more close calls with driving or moving around the house, or if finding words is becoming harder, these are not things to shrug off. They're signals, your brain's way of asking for attention.
There's one more early symptom I want to talk about, one that often hides in plain sight because it doesn't look like a memory problem at all. It's a sudden withdrawal from hobbies, social activities, or even family gatherings that you used to enjoy.
At first glance, it might seem like you're just feeling tired or needing more rest. But with early Alzheimer's, this changes deeper. People begin avoiding situations that require focus, conversation, or mental effort because they sense something is off. They might feel overwhelmed in group settings, frustrated when they can't keep up with a game, or anxious when they can't remember names. Over time, they start saying no to invitations they once looked forward to: church meetings, bridge nights, community volunteering. This quiet retreat can be one of the most heartbreaking early signs because it robs us of joy long before the disease fully takes hold. And sadly, it can speed up cognitive decline. Our brains thrive on interaction, stimulation, and challenge. When we pull away from these things, it's like closing the blinds on a sunny day. Little by little, the room grows darker. I remember speaking with a man whose wife noticed he'd stopped going to his weekly fishing trips with friends. At first, she thought he was just bored with it after so many years. But when she asked him, he admitted he was embarrassed. He kept forgetting which bait to use, and he couldn't remember the names of some of the men he'd fished with for decades. That fear of messing up was keeping him home. With encouragement and the right support, he eventually returned to the water, and it made a world of difference in his mood and mental sharpness. When we put all these signs together, memory loss that goes beyond normal forgetfulness, trouble following conversations, changes in mood, difficulty with familiar tasks, problems with spatial awareness, struggles with language, and withdrawal from favorite activities, we see the bigger picture. Alzheimer's is not just about forgetting, it's about subtle changes in thinking, behavior, and daily life.
Here's the part I want you to hold on to. Noticing these signs early does not mean giving up hope. In fact, it's the opposite. The earlier we act, the more we can do to protect brain health. There are lifestyle changes, therapies, and support systems that can help slow progression and improve quality of life. Things like regular physical activity, mentally stimulating hobbies, a balanced diet rich in brain-friendly foods, good sleep, and strong social connections can all make a meaningful difference. If you've recognized any of these signs in yourself or someone you love, the next step is not to panic. It's to talk to a doctor, ideally a neurologist or a specialist in memory disorders. Bring notes, bring examples, and be open about what's been happening. The sooner you get answers, the sooner you can make a plan. And remember, Alzheimer's doesn't take away who you are, it just changes how you move through life. With awareness, support, and the right habits, you can still create joy, laughter, and connection every single day. If this video has helped you see these early symptoms in a new light, share it with friends or family members who might need to hear it. Leave a comment if you've noticed these signs in your own life or in someone you care about. It could help others feel less alone. And if you want more tips, stories, and guidance on living well after 60, make sure to subscribe so we can walk this journey together. Here's to protecting your mind, cherishing your memories, and living your best life at any age. You are not alone, and you have more power than you think.